Pause for a moment, not to think, not to analyze, just to remember. There is a specific moment almost everyone experiences but rarely talks about. It happens quietly, often unexpectedly. You catch your reflection in a mirror, a phone screen, a window at a red light, and something feels different. Not better in a cosmetic sense, not younger, not styled or edited. Different in a way that feels deeper. Your eyes don't seem as tight. Your face doesn't look like it's bracing for something anymore. There's a softness that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was there once, long ago, before life taught you how to guard yourself. And when that moment happens, a strange question follows. Is this just my imagination? Or is something actually changing? Most people dismiss the thought immediately. They assume it's lighting, mood, coincidence, or wishful thinking. But what if it isn't? What if the face you're seeing is not the result of effort, but of release? What if it's not about appearance at all, but about alignment? Throughout history, across scripture and spiritual tradition, the human face has been understood as more than anatomy. It is a threshold, a witness, a quiet messenger of what the soul has been carrying and what it is finally learning to let go of. This message is not about vanity. It is not about self-improvement, and it is not about trying to become someone else. It is about recognizing a sacred pattern that unfolds when a person stops living in survival mode and starts resting, not in circumstances, but in God. Because when the inner life begins to settle, the body listens. When the spirit finds safety, the nervous system follows. And when fear loosens its grip, the face no longer needs to perform protection. In Scripture, transformation is rarely announced loudly. It is revealed quietly. Moses did not know his face was shining. Others noticed it before he did. And in the same way, some of you are noticing subtle shifts. Not because you tried harder, but because you trusted deeper. In this series, we are going to explore what it truly means when your face begins to change. Not as a metaphor alone, but as evidence of something real unfolding beneath the surface. We will move slowly, deliberately, because this is not information, it is recognition. And if you feel something settle in your chest as you listen, that is not coincidence either. It may be the moment your spirit recognizes itself being named. This is not about becoming extraordinary. It is about returning to what was always true. Let us begin. Part 1. The face as a witness, not a performance. Long before psychology gave language to facial tension, nervous systems, and trauma responses, Scripture was already speaking about the face. Not as a surface, not as decoration, but as a witness. In the biblical worldview, the face is where the inner life quietly reveals itself. This is why Scripture often speaks of a lifted countenance or a fallen one. These are not poetic exaggerations. They are observations of a truth that has followed humanity across centuries. What we carry within eventually shapes how we appear before the world. Consider this carefully. The face is not something we consciously control most of the time. We can smile on command, yes. We can pose. We can perform for a photograph. But the deeper patterns, the tightness around the eyes, the heaviness in the brow, the guarded set of the mouth, those are not chosen moment by moment. They are learned over time. They are formed by repetition. Repetition of fear. Repetition of vigilance. Repetition of living as though peace might be taken away at any moment. This is why two people of the same age, same background, same circumstances can look entirely different. One carries a quiet openness, the other carries a constant readiness, and neither of them may be aware of it. The face remembers what the mind has normalized. In Scripture, when God speaks of restoring a person, he often speaks first of restoring the countenance. Not the situation, not the status, the face. Why? Because the face reflects whether a person feels safe to exist. When Cain's offering was rejected, God did not begin with correction. He began with observation. Why is your face downcast? This question was not about appearance. It was about the inner storm already shaping Cain's posture toward life. In the same way, many people today are not aware that they have been living with a downcast face internally, even when smiling externally. Not because they are ungrateful, not because they lack faith, but because they have been surviving. Survival mode leaves a signature. It trains the muscles to hold, it trains the eyes to scan, it trains the breath to stay shallow, and over time, the body becomes fluent in a language the soul never intended to speak forever. This is why the message you are hearing feels strangely personal. Because it is naming something that has been happening without your conscious permission. At some point, quietly, something shifted. You stopped fighting every possible future in advance. You stopped rehearsing every worst-case scenario. You stopped treating rest as something that had to be earned, and when that happened, your face began to change. Not dramatically, but honestly. This is not a miracle in the theatrical sense. It is a miracle in the biblical sense. The kind that unfolds slowly, the kind that begins inside, the kind that others often notice before you do. There is a reason the Apostle Paul speaks of believers being transformed from glory to glory as they behold the Lord. The word he uses implies a gradual process, a reflection that deepens over time. You do not wake up one morning with a different face. You wake up one morning without the same weight, and the body responds accordingly. Your eyes soften because they are no longer guarding the door to your soul every second of the day. Your jaw relaxes because it is no longer bracing for impact. Your expression settles because your spirit has stopped arguing with itself. This is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming anchored. Anchored people do not need to perform safety. They embody it. And this is why people may be reacting to you differently, even if they cannot explain why. There is something about a face that is no longer negotiating its right to exist. A face that is simply present. In theological terms, this is what happens when fear stops being the interpreter of reality. When fear interprets life, the face becomes a shield. When trust interprets life, the face becomes a window, not open to everything, but open enough to breathe. This is what you are seeing. Not a new version of yourself, but a truer one. And this is only the beginning. Part 2. When peace feels unfamiliar, there's a strange moment that often follows inner healing. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside. Life does not suddenly become easier. Problems do not disappear overnight. And yet, something feels quieter, not empty, not numb, just unfamiliar. This is the moment many people misinterpret. They think something is wrong because the constant tension they lived with for so long is no longer there. The mind, which has been trained to survive, starts searching for the missing noise. The body waits for the other shoe to drop, and the soul wonders whether it is allowed to rest this deeply. This reaction is not a lack of faith, it is conditioning. When a nervous system has lived in alert mode for years, peace does not feel like peace at first. It feels like the absence of a threat you are trained to expect. And absence can feel unsettling when danger has been familiar. Scripture understands this dynamic more deeply than many realize. When the Israelites were led out of Egypt, they did not immediately feel relief. They felt disoriented. They complained. They longed for the predictability of captivity rather than the uncertainty of freedom, not because slavery was good, but because it was known. The wilderness was not punishment, it was reorientation. In the same way, when God begins restoring your inner life, there is often a period where calm feels strange. You notice your breath is deeper, your jaw is unclenched. Your eyes are no longer scanning the room automatically. And instead of relief, you feel alert. Should I be worried? Am I missing something? Why do I feel so still? This is the nervous system learning a new language. The body does not instantly trust safety just because the spirit does. It learns through repetition, through consistency, through small confirmations that nothing bad happens when you stop bracing. And this is where many people unintentionally undo what God is restoring. They reintroduce tension to feel normal again. They overanalyze conversations. They replay moments that no longer need replaying. They scan their reflection for flaws as if peace must earn permission. But Scripture invites a different response. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness is not passivity. It is trust without performance. When peace arrives, it does not ask you to explain it. It asks you to inhabit it. This is why the face changes before circumstances do. Because peace does not come from external resolution first. It comes from internal permission. Permission to stop living in anticipation of harm. Permission to believe that God is present even while things are still unfolding. When that permission is granted, the body begins to follow. Your face stops working overtime. Your expression no longer needs to manage outcomes. Your eyes are no longer apologizing for existing. And this is why you may feel caught off guard when you see yourself now. You are not used to seeing yourself at rest. Rest, for many, has always been conditional, temporary, fragile, something that could be revoked at any moment. But biblical peace, shalom, is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of God within it. That presence changes how you carry yourself. Not because you are naive, not because you are unaware, but because you are no longer governed by fear. This is also why some people around you may seem unsettled. A peaceful face exposes anxiety without saying a word. A steady presence reveals chaos by contrast. You may notice pauses in conversation, longer stares, subtle shifts in how others respond to you. This is not because you're doing anything wrong. It is because your nervous system is no longer syncing with instability. You're becoming less reactive, less predictable to chaos, less available to being pulled into old patterns. And this steadiness leaves a mark. Not a loud one, not a confrontational one, but a visible one. Part 3. The return of softness without returning to pain. There is a misunderstanding many people carry about softness. They equate it with weakness, with naivety, with being unprotected. So when softness begins to return, in their face, their posture, their tone, they instinctively tense again. They have learned, often through painful experience, that softness once cost them something. But Scripture draws a very different picture. Softness, in biblical language, is not fragility. It is responsiveness. It is the ability to remain open without being unguarded. And that kind of softness does not come from ignoring danger. It comes from discernment. This is why what God restores is not the version of you that was unprotected. It is the version of you that was unburdened. Many of you have looked at old photos of yourself and felt something tighten in your chest. Not because you miss who you were with, not because you want that season back, but because you recognize something in your face that has been missing. There was a lightness, a gentleness, a lack of tension you did not realize you were carrying. Life did not harden you overnight. It trained you slowly, through disappointment, through responsibility, through the repeated message that you needed to stay alert to survive. So your face learned to hold, your eyes learned to guard, your breath learned to stay high and shallow. And now, quietly, God is undoing that training. Not by removing wisdom, not by erasing boundaries, but by restoring trust at the right depth. This is why the softness returning to you feels different than before. It is not unprotected, it is anchored. You can feel it in the way you respond now. You do not rush to explain yourself. You do not overextend to prove your worth. You do not abandon your own needs to maintain peace. This is not because you care less. It is because you are finally safe enough to care without self-erasure. Jesus himself described his nature as gentle and lowly in heart, and yet no one could accuse him of being weak. His gentleness did not make him passive. It made him precise. He knew when to speak. He knew when to be silent. He knew when to withdraw. This is the kind of softness being restored to you, a softness that can say no, a softness that can step back, a softness that does not confuse access with intimacy. And the body reflects this discernment. Your face no longer braces for invasion. Your eyes no longer apologize for boundaries. Your expression is calm, not because you are agreeable, but because you are settled. This is why people experience you differently now. Some feel drawn to it because true calm is rare. Some feel confused by it because they remember the version of you that was easier to predict. Some feel uncomfortable around it because a steady presence exposes instability without accusation. But you are not responsible for managing their reaction. Your responsibility is to protect what God is restoring. Softness does not mean availability to everything. Peace does not mean agreement with everyone. It means your spirit has found its center. And when the center is strong, the edges can be gentle. This is also why your face no longer carries yesterday's fear. You're not pretending to be okay. You are no longer rehearsing collapse. You are learning to exist in the present without scanning for threat. That learning leaves a visible trace. In theological terms, this is sanctification expressed somatically. Holiness lived through the body, not imposed upon it, and it is ongoing. There will be moments when old tension tries to return, when stress tightens the jaw again, when the eyes grow heavy. This does not mean the restoration is undone. It is simply a cue to return. Return to breath. Return to prayer. Return to the boundaries that keep your softness safe. Part 4. The practice of return, not the performance of peace. One of the most subtle traps in spiritual growth is the belief that peace must be maintained through effort. That once calm arrives, it becomes your responsibility to hold it together, to guard it perfectly, to never let tension return. This belief quietly turns peace into performance, and performance always brings pressure. Scripture does not teach this kind of peace. Biblical peace is not something you sustain through vigilance. It is something you return to through trust, again and again, not with drama, not with self-criticism, but with awareness. This is why the invitation that comes with restoration is not intense. It is simple. When old habits surface, overthinking, self-judgment, scanning your reflection for what feels off, you do not need to fight them. You do not need to shame yourself for regressing. You only need to notice. Notice the tightening. Notice the shallow breath. Notice the impulse to brace. And then return. Return is one of the most sacred movements in Scripture. The prophets spoke of it constantly, not as punishment, not as failure, but as homecoming. Return to me, and I will return to you. This return does not require explanation. It can be as small as one breath taken lower into the chest, one quiet sentence whispered internally, one boundary honored without justification, and the body listens. When you return consistently, the nervous system learns that safety is not fragile, that peace does not disappear when attention wanders for a moment, that God does not withdraw presence when you forget. This is why the face continues to change over time, not because you are forcing relaxation, but because your system is learning that rest is allowed. You may begin to notice it in very ordinary moments, while washing your hands, while waiting at a light, while passing a mirror without flinching. Your eyes no longer rush past your reflection. Your face no longer scans itself for permission to rest. You simply recognize yourself. This recognition is not narcissism, it is integration. You are no longer split between who you are and who you think you need to be to stay safe. And that wholeness has a visible effect. Your presence becomes steady. Your responses become measured. Your face becomes quieter, not blank, not emotionless, just unburdened. This is why the message emphasizes small practices rather than grand declarations. A slow breath, an honest prayer, a pause before reacting. These are not techniques. They are agreements. Agreements with God. Agreements with your own body. Agreements to stop undoing what is being restored. Because peace is not destroyed by difficulty. It is eroded by constant self-interruption. Every time you doubt whether rest is allowed, you interrupt the learning process. Every time you rush to analyze what is already healing, you introduce noise where silence was doing its work. Scripture often associates peace with waiting, not passive waiting, attentive waiting, waiting that trusts God to continue what He began without constant supervision. This is what it means to walk by faith rather than by control. And this is why your face may look different now. It is no longer asking the world for reassurance. It is no longer negotiating its worth. It is simply present. Part 5. When steadiness becomes visible. There is a moment when inner change stops being something you feel privately and starts becoming something others notice instinctively. Not because you announce it. Not because you explain it, but because steadiness has a presence of its own. This is where many people begin to feel confused. They notice subtle shifts in how others respond to them. Conversations pause a little longer. Eye contact lingers. Some people seem warmer. Others seem uncertain, even slightly uncomfortable. And the question arises quietly. What is it about me now? The answer is simpler than you might expect. You are no longer being pulled as easily. Steadiness is not dramatic. It does not demand attention, but it changes the relational field. When someone is no longer driven by anxiety, over-explanation, or the need to be understood, the dynamic shifts. Your face reflects this before your words ever do. Your eyes are not asking for reassurance. Your expression is not bracing for disagreement. Your posture is not leaning forward to anticipate conflict. You are present without performing presence. This is deeply biblical. Scripture often describes wisdom not as cleverness, but as weight, a gravity that comes from alignment with God. Proverbs speaks of a peaceful countenance as something that brings life to others, not because it entertains, but because it stabilizes. This is what people are responding to. Some are drawn to it because they feel calmer around you without knowing why. Some are unsettled by it because your steadiness highlights their own inner noise. Some feel exposed by it because peace makes panic look louder than it wants to be. None of this is something you need to manage. You do not need to shrink your calm to make others comfortable. You do not need to explain your boundaries. You do not need to reintroduce chaos to feel familiar again. This is an important moment, because when God restores steadiness, the old pattern often tries to return in subtle ways. You might feel the urge to over-explain, to soften your clarity, to re-enter old dynamics just to reduce tension in the room. But notice this. That urge is not humility. It is habit, and habit does not get the final word anymore. You are learning how to remain steady without becoming rigid, calm without becoming distant, soft without becoming porous. This balance is not achieved through effort. It is the result of anchoring. Anchored people do not need to convince others of who they are. They do not need to defend their growth. Their presence communicates what words no longer have to. This is why Scripture says, "Let your gentleness be evident to all." Not your intensity, not your certainty, your gentleness, gentleness that comes from strength. Gentleness that has boundaries, gentleness that does not disappear when challenged. And yes, this gentleness leaves a mark on the face. A face that no longer rushes, a face that no longer tightens in anticipation, a face that does not flinch at stillness. This is not emotional detachment, it is emotional safety. Your body is learning that it does not need to stay on guard to survive, that life can be engaged without bracing, that God's presence is not conditional on your vigilance. This learning is ongoing. There will be days when old tension returns briefly, when stress tightens the muscles again, when fear whispers that peace is temporary. When that happens, remember this. Steadiness is not fragile. It is practiced. Every time you choose a slow breath instead of a reaction, you reinforce it. Every time you honor a boundary without guilt, you deepen it. Every time you return instead of spiral, you strengthen it, and the face continues to follow. Because the body believes what is repeated. Part 6. Your body is catching up to what your spirit already knows. There is an important distinction that must be made here. What is happening to you is not that your spirit is changing because your body feels safer. It is the opposite. Your body is changing because your spirit already decided something quietly and firmly. I am safe with God. This decision did not happen in a single dramatic moment. It was not a declaration shouted into the air. It was formed slowly, through disappointment that did not destroy you, through prayers that did not receive immediate answers, through moments where you realized that God stayed even when outcomes were uncertain. Your spirit learned trust before your body did. And this matters because the body does not change through logic. It changes through consistency. For a long time, your body lived as if danger was always nearby. Even in calm moments, it stayed alert. Even in silence, it waited for disruption. Even in prayer, it held tension, just in case. This is why faith can be sincere, while the body remains anxious. The spirit may believe, but the body has memory. Memory of past harm, memory of instability, memory of moments where peace was followed by loss. So when God restores your spirit, He does not rush your body. He teaches it, patiently, gently, without force. This teaching shows up in subtle ways. You begin to notice that your breath naturally drops lower in your chest. Your shoulders rest instead of lifting unconsciously. Your face no longer tightens when nothing is wrong. And sometimes this feels strange. You may even catch yourself thinking, why do I feel this calm right now? As if calm needs justification, as if peace must be explained. That thought itself reveals how unfamiliar safety once was. Scripture never treats the body as separate from spiritual life. The Psalms speak of bones rejoicing, flesh resting, heart steady. Salvation was never meant to be only conceptual. It is meant to be embodied. This is why the restoration you are experiencing is so comprehensive. God is not only renewing your thoughts, He is retraining your responses. He is teaching your nervous system that it no longer needs to stay in emergency mode. And this retraining takes time. There will be moments when your spirit feels calm, but your body reacts out of habit. Tight jaw, shallow breath, sudden vigilance. This does not mean you are going backward. It means your body is asking for reassurance. Not reassurance through control, but reassurance through presence. This is where gentle attention matters. Not forcing relaxation, not correcting yourself harshly, just noticing and returning. Returning to breath, returning to prayer, returning to the awareness that you are not alone in this moment. Each return is a lesson your body absorbs. Each return says, we are safe enough to soften. Each return says, we do not need to brace. Each return says, God is still here. And slowly, the body begins to believe it. This belief changes the face in ways no mirror can manufacture. The eyes lose their constant scanning. The brow loosens. The expression becomes neutral. Not guarded, not defensive. Neutral is holy ground. Neutral means you are not anticipating harm. Neutral means you are available to the present moment. Neutral means you are no longer living one step ahead of your own life. This is why your face may feel unfamiliar to you now. You are seeing yourself without the overlay of fear, and fear had been there for so long that its absence feels noticeable. But this absence is not emptiness, it is space. Space for discernment, space for joy, space for God's presence to be felt without interruption. Your body is not betraying you by softening. It is finally trusting what your spirit has known for a while. That you do not have to stay tense to stay faithful. That vigilance is not devotion. That rest is not irresponsibility. This learning will continue. Some days will feel deeply settled. Other days will feel more reactive. Neither defines you. What defines you is the direction you are moving, toward integration, not fragmentation, toward a life where spirit and body are no longer at odds. And this harmony leaves a visible trace, not as a glow meant to impress, but as a presence that feels grounded, honest, unforced. Conclusion: permission to be present. There is one final truth that brings everything into focus. Your face is not changing because you tried harder. Your face is not changing because life suddenly became easier. Your face is not changing because you fixed yourself. Your face is changing because, at some point, you stopped begging the past for permission to move forward. This is the moment Scripture speaks about more often than we realize. The moment when a person stops living from what hurt them and begins living from what holds them. God did not erase your story. He recentered it. The memories are still there. The wisdom remains. The discernment stays intact. But the fear no longer sits in the driver's seat. And when fear steps aside, the body exhales. This is why what you are seeing in the mirror feels both new and familiar. New because you have not seen yourself without tension in a long time. Familiar because this is who you were before stress trained your muscles into constant defense. This is not regression, it is restoration. Scripture uses a word for this kind of work. Renewal, not replacement, not reinvention. Renewal means returning something to its intended state. God is not turning you into someone else. He is giving you back to yourself. The self that can breathe without checking if it is allowed. The self that can be present without scanning for danger. The self that does not need to perform peace because it is living it. And this peace does not demand perfection. There will be days when old tension tries to climb back into your jaw. Days when your eyes feel heavy again. Days when anxiety whispers that calm is temporary. When that happens, do not argue with yourself. Just return. One slow breath. One honest prayer. One small boundary honored without guilt. Return is not failure. Return is faith. Because faith is not proven by how long you stay calm. It is proven by how gently you come back when you drift. This is what it means to walk with God rather than strive for Him. And as you continue walking, your face will continue to follow your spirit, not toward perfection, but toward integration. A life where what you believe and how you live are no longer at war. A life where your body trusts what your spirit knows. A life where your presence speaks before your words do. So if you have been wondering whether it was all in your head, let this settle the question. It is not in your head. It is in your breath. It is in your eyes. It is in the softness returning to places that used to be clenched. It is the quiet evidence of a deeper trust taking root, and that trust does not need to be explained. It only needs to be protected. Stay with what is being restored. Do not rush to measure it. Do not rush to question it. Let it unfold. Because what God begins gently, He sustains faithfully. And what you are becoming is not someone new. It is someone true.